Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar Buzz. Trevor here, and today we have Critics' Choice Documentary Award nominations. Thomas is not here currently, but Thomas has recorded something that will be later in the video. I'm leaving for Chicago International Film Festival very, very soon. So it was tough to find a time where both of us could sit down and record. So we've just recorded two separate reaction videos, so you'll get to see both of our reactions to the nominations. So this is our first big precursor. We kind of get to see how the documentary race is shaping up. The Critics' Choice just basically has decided to separate documentaries and nominate them as their own thing. So this is basically the Critics' Choice precursor for the documentary category. I mean, and they're one of the big ones alongside like BAFTA, Golden Globe, the Guilds, right? And they're the only one of the massive, the big four precursors that does a documentary category. So we get to learn a lot about this. Yeah, very, very excited to get into it. Let's just hop right in. I made predictions. I'll throw them up on the screen. And you've seen our Oscars predictions. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Navalny, Fire of Love, Descendant. We're all expecting those to be big players. Senior as well. So let's just jump right in. We have Aftershock. Okay, I predicted that. I've seen it. I think it's pretty good. And then we have the Automatic. Wait. Did that just skip over All the Beauty and the Bloodshed? Assuming this is alphabetical. Did that? Okay. Let's move on. I'll process that later. The Automat, I've heard decent things about. Mel Brooks wrote a song for it, so that's something to consider. Okay, here's Descendant. It's here. Sorry, no, this is alphabetical. Next we have Fire of Love. That's also expected. All the Beauty. Wow. But so now that's won the Venice Golden Lion. Only movie to go to all four festivals, but then missed placing at TIFF Top 3. But it's also one of the most critically acclaimed films of the year. I guess the only explanation is that, like, maybe people just didn't see it, like, since it's just premiered at festivals recently. Because that's... Wow. Okay. Gabby Giffords Won't Back Down. I've heard very little about this, but I'm not completely unfamiliar. Goodnight Oppie. I'm expecting that to be kind of big from Amazon. I'm considering putting it in. Could also be a VFX contender. The Janes. Okay, I've seen this. It's decent. I think predicted to get in. Moon Age Daydreams here. Okay. I could see that still missing out, but people are loving it. Navalny. So that is here. And Sydney got in. Okay, wait, but no. Whoa, those are too big. The Senior and The Territory both missed. Okay. All That Breathes is another big one that missed. Wow. Lots of big things missed. Senior and The Territory. So Nat Geo only got one in with Fire of Love. Netflix only got one in with Descendant. They couldn't get in Senior as well. Senior could have the same problem with being a recent festival thing. But All That Breathes and... that's weird. All That Breathes in The Territory have been around since Sundance. So you would assume that people have seen those. I mean, The Territory is even like out in Ted's been out in theaters, so they just ignored. Wow. All the Beauty and Bloodshed missed. Did it show up anywhere? Okay, they nominated it for director and for political documentary, but that's it. That's bizarre. That is absolutely bizarre. Wow. All right then. I can't believe that. I actually cannot believe that. I don't know what to do with Doc now. Like, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, that was just like, I mean, Matt Nagley was talking about this as a potential Best Picture thing. Like what? Wow. Looking at the nomination tally, Fire of Love led with 7 and Goodnight Oppie picked up 6. Might slide Goodnight Oppie into my 5. Fire of Love, I guess, could be the one now. I mean, stayed at number 2 for a while. That's fascinating. Okay then. Other notable things that missed. There's Bad Act from IFC. That still picked up a couple of things. I believe that picked up a best first doc nomination here, so that's still present. The Territory, that one confuses me because that got Science and Nature doc, first doc in cinematography, so they at least saw it. It just didn't get into the 10, which is really confusing. Aftershock got in, which is also really interesting. Lucy and Desi ended up missing. I feel like people just aren't talking about that anymore. That still got 3 noms as well. It got first doc, doc, score, and biographical doc. So that was still there. All That Breathes, because this won Sundance, Cannes, and London Film Festival's top documentary prize. So I really thought this was gonna show up big, but that only got cinematography and science and nature doc. So yeah. And then Retrograde, it looked like just didn't get anything. No, that got political doc. Very few people have seen that, so that kind of makes sense. Another interesting case is Icarus: The Aftermath, which didn't show up anywhere. So it's the sequel to the Oscar-winning documentary Icarus from Netflix, but it just doesn't have a distributor, which is kind of interesting. You would expect it to have a distributor, especially Netflix, but yeah, just wasn't there. Black Ice, our TIFF winner, didn't show up at all. Neither did Last Flight Home, which is another big thing from Sundance. But definitely things to keep eyes on. Gabby Giffords went back down. New things, I should say. The Automat, which I just don't really know anything about other than that Mel Brooks wrote a song for it. But I mean, hey, it's kind of big. So yeah, Aftershock could be a bigger player than we thought. I liked it quite a bit, so I wouldn't be mad about that. But Senior, The Territory, All That Breathes, and All the Beauty and the Bloodshed missing. That's really confusing. I'm confused. All right, I'll throw this over to Thomas. Wow.
Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, the first real precursor to is the sort of things we might be expecting to see in the best documentary feature category, and maybe even we've talked about things like All the Beauty and the Bloodshed maybe even being a picture thing this year. I personally don't think so. I don't think Trevor does really either, but it's a thing that's sort of worth considering. So we'll see if that sort of shows up here. It'll be interesting to see which sort of documentaries get the most nominations as well. Obviously, Critics' Choice Documentary, they award for things like directing, editing, cinematography, all of that kind of stuff. All of the fun stuff to do with documentaries. But yeah, let's get right into it. So let's have a look first at Best Picture, or I guess the equivalent. Right, let's go through alphabetically, I presume. Yes, because first is Aftershock. Okay, interesting. That is, yes. Wait, The Automat. Okay, well that means that all the Beauty and the Bloodshed is that's not. Oh, that's very interesting. Well, we basically assumed that a documentary called All the Beauty and the Bloodshed about the same sort of topic as the TV show Dopesick was a few years ago at this point now. We were presuming that would be a pretty big thing. I've currently got a winning documentary feature. It didn't appear at TIFF, and it didn't appear here either. That's interesting. I'll have to stew on that one a bit. That is very, very interesting. So yes, The Automat, not heard of that. Interesting to show up here. What's after that? Descendant, yes, we heard about this. Pretty solid topic. Got it in my 5 currently. Makes sense. Fire of Love. Yeah, I mean, pretty standard. I think a lot of people do have this as, if not their number 1, their number 2. Very strong contender. National Geographic. It's just going to depend on whether it's going to be this or I think The Territory is the other one it's called. Both National Geographic things. Will they both get in? That is an interesting question to sort of discuss there. I do think this, though, is a frontrunner for them, and maybe even at this point the frontrunner for documentary. We've seen All the Beauty and the Bloodshed sort of fall down a couple of places here and there, not appearing at TIFF, not appearing here. Yeah, maybe we're going to have to start considering Fire of Love to be number 1. After that, we've got Gabby Giffords Won't Back Down. Never heard of that one either. That's an interesting one to shop. Goodnight Oppie, I have heard of this one. And again, might just be a thing that we need to consider here. Like, we've got a couple of options. Fire of Love, I think, is probably a shoe-in at this point. Obviously, there is that famous documentary snub that we do have to expect. But Fire of Love, Descendant, I've definitely got those 2 in currently. There are a couple of other ones. Maybe Navalny, we'll see if that shows up. After that, we've got The Janes. Saw it recently. It's alright. It's not bad. It's worth a watch. It's still a talking heads documentary, but does it in the most interesting way, I guess. And yeah, it's interesting that showed up here. Maybe another thing to consider. Moon Age Daydream, that's interesting. We didn't know if this was maybe going to be the Sparks Brothers of this year. Obviously, last year, Sparks Brothers, Edgar Wright, just didn't really take off with these sort of critic groups or anything really. It just sort of fell a bit silent during award season. We feel that maybe Moon Age Daydream might be that, but it's nice to see it show up here. Suggests maybe it can start to build on momentum. After that, we've got Navalny. There's Navalny. Yeah, sort of expected it here, and I do expect it to show up a lot of places during the preseason. But in terms of getting the actual Oscar nomination, I do have this one being the one that gets snubbed. I don't know. I just think it feels maybe a little snubbable, maybe a bit more snubbable than things like Fire of Love, descending to this point, but we'll see. And then Sydney, good, because I've got that one in. I think it's going to be hard for the Oscars to deny this one. I've got it in currently. Just nice to see it show up here. But that's very interesting, though. We've got a lineup of, what's that, 10? Yes, 10 films. And All the Beauty and the Bloodshed isn't there. Like, with TIFF, I think it's a little more understandable. They did choose to go for a Canadian thing like Black Ice in the end, and there were only 3 places. So, like, that was a bit more understandable. Not showing up here, that could be a problem. Now, there was talk recently about an Academy screening. People seem to really love it. People really took to it in the Academy there. That's not a good sign, though. If you're missing a place like Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, that's not a good sign at all. There's also that other one they missed as well, if we're talking about snubs. All That Breathes, I believe it's called. Another all one. That's an interesting one to miss as well. Definitely a few more. The Territory, I mentioned National Geographic having those two. Another one just that's not showing up here. Yeah, all interesting stuff. Oh, Senior as well. Some people think that this might going to be between Senior and Sydney, between the two people, the Hollywood sort of documentary. One of them will get him. I currently have Sydney over it. This sort of affirms that a little more. But that's a Netflix documentary. Missed as well. This is well interesting. But yeah, I'd say the major takeaway from that is All the Beauty and the Bloodshed missing. That's very, very interesting and slightly worrying. We'll just have a quick peruse over the other sort of categories. Director, we've got George Carlin's American Dream. Interesting. Descendant there, yeah, Fire of Love. Sydney, okay, I watched Sydney. Didn't think it was the best directed documentary, but, it's still competent. There's Moonlight Daydream. Oh, okay. Here's All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. So it appears in director, but not in picture. That is interesting. I don't know. That's 2 places now. It's worrying. It is a bit worrying. Well, we'll see though. We'll see. We can see if it starts to pick. I think it does need to pick up a few more precursors. Obviously, the film is very good. People love it. Just needs to start picking up momentum, because that is really what you need in a category like documentary feature, which is also true for things like international as well. You just need to start getting that momentum. And once you do, you can start to really pull ahead. And yes, we'll see what wins in these places, obviously. But yeah, that's interesting. All the Beauty and Bloodshed showing up in director, but not in picture. My page is just frozen. Feel free to cut this bit out. There we go. Navalny as well. Cool. And Goodnight Oppie. So yeah, a lot of the things you sort of expect to appear here. Documented first time, it's not very important. The Territory is there. As is Lucy and Desi, another one. Similar topic to, the same topic as Being Ricardo's. Maybe that could show up. Came out at Sundance, I believe. Not a lot of people saw it though, so we'll see. Cinematography, nothing too. There's All the Breeze. Okay, so it's weird. We're seeing these the sort of ones that got snubbed earlier in the picture line of the actual picture line itself appear in these sorts of categories. You saw. Obviously, I mentioned All the Beauty and Bloodshed in director, All the Breeze now here in cinematography. Why are they not going for picture though? That's one. That is interesting. I don't know. And the Territory as well appearing here. Nice to see. Editing. Anything important to note? No. Again, sort of the same things appearing. Fire of Love is seeming like, I feel like that might get the most. We'll count them up at the end. But yeah, Fire of Love maybe is my number 1 currently. I might have to switch that. Oh, there is Senior. Senior is in Best Biographical Documentary. I mean, you'd hope it would be. Like, considering we think it's sort of number 2. I do. I don't know how Trevor feels. Biographical Documentary. It should probably show up there. But I believe that is pretty much all of note, really. Yeah. So, major takeaways. All the Beauty and Bloodshed, not there in picture. All the Breeze, not there in picture. Territory, not there in picture. Senior, not there in picture. And at this point, I do think, like with these kind of awards, it's more important, I guess, to look at what doesn't make it in as opposed to what sort of does. Because what doesn't make it in, sort of, it's easier to then knock them out of the race. Will I be knocking all of the ones I just said out of the race? No, 100% not. Like all the Beauty and Bloodshed should easily get a nomination. Maybe it's a snub one. Maybe it's the one that gets snubbed. We'll see. But I think that's a definite major takeaway. Is there any easier way of looking up what won the most? Yes, if you scroll down in the article. Fire of Love and Goodnight Oppie is saying are leading the nominations. That makes sense, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Goodnight Oppie, not really on my radar. maybe I slide it in though at this point. Like maybe I do. Maybe I do because that's a pretty good haul that one picked up, and yeah, I think that's probably about it. I think I've covered everything of note to talk about there. Yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Fire of Love might be my new number one. What do you think though, Trevor? Well, the audience. I don't know how he's gonna cut this. We'll see. See you in
All
next one.
right. So now that you've heard from both of us, yeah, that was interesting. Lots of big snubs. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, All That Breathes, Senior, The Territory. Some interesting things to get in. Good Night Oppie getting the second most nominations, just behind Fire of Love. Fire of Love leading with 7. Good Night Oppie with 6. Good Night Oppie. Maybe Amblin's second thing in the awards race this year, aside from the Fablemans. Could be very, very interesting. Watch out for that as a surprise VFX contender. Yeah. Thanks for watching. That was interesting. I mean, we'll see. Only one film has ever won best best documentary at the Oscars and missed out here, that being Icarus in 2017. So we'll see if All the Beauty and the Bloodshed can hold on to this momentum, or if this is like, I mean, I want to say our first warning, but it's honestly our second after it missed top 3 for People's Choice. So we'll see. But thank you everybody for watching. You can subscribe and stay tuned for more awards talk and movie reviews. And all the things that I like. So see you guys next time. And until then, stay safe and goodbye.